Hello, everyone. Welcome to Gen AI Talkin' 10, brought to you by SS&C Blue Prism. I'm Brad. He's Satish. Satish, let's talk about which industries have been the most aggressive in pursuing Gen AI to date. I know you've talked to so many of our customers and many of those conversations I've been involved in with you as well, but I'd love to hear just kind of your summary thoughts about which industries are leading the charge.
Absolutely, Brad. This is one of my favorite topics because, it's all about how is Gen AI being applied in all these industries that we serve. Of course, with SS&C, we tend to focus on financial services and healthcare. So that's where a lot of our customers kind of are. So we have seen those two industries are at the forefront. Frankly, to me, healthcare surprised me a little bit given, the sensitivity around the data. But let's look at it, right? Financial services, banking and insurance. And also, if you look at our case studies that we published, they are in banking and insurance, turns out, because, those are the industries that are at the forefront. So there are use cases like loan processing and claims and invoice processing, market research, risk and compliance, tax and legal, right? All of these, we see some version of it. We see in, when we are talking to banks and insurance companies. The second category is healthcare or second industry. This includes, this whole idea of digital front door, right? How can I make that patient engagement much more easier while also reducing the impact on my staff? As I transform my business and make it more digital, can I do both? Like, can I have the cake and eat it too, right? Which is, I want to serve the patient better, but I also want to reduce my cost. And the digital front door is a great way to leverage that. And AI becomes a big part of that. Adverse effects is something that we have seen. Brad, you remember, right? When we have talked to some of those pharma clients, adverse effects is top of their mind. And it has a big impact on patient outcomes, right? If we can save more patient lives. We can really help those patients that are suffering with medication, with the right medication, right? We are helping those pharma companies and, we are part of that.
Yes, you might even talk through like what that adverse effect reporting process looks like for those that aren't familiar, just really quickly. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, so adverse effects usually means, right, that a patient who's taking medication, if the patient has an adverse effect with the drug, which is they're seeing a side effect or even, more than a side effect, but it's completely unexpected. It is having an adverse reaction for this patient, and it can vary from patient to patient, right? So when that happens, it's either the patient or the healthcare worker, doctor, nurse, or the pharmacist that usually will report the adverse effect to the pharma companies. And pharma companies with dozens of these drugs get thousands of adverse effect reports from, these three types of user groups, right? Patient, healthcare workers, and pharmacists. Now, when that happens, the pharma companies are expected to do a few things. One, capture what the report is, right? Accurately and document everything that they have. So that's number one. Number two, they need to report to the FDA based on the severity of the adverse effect. So it can be classified as low, medium, high. Well, if it's a medium or high issue, like it's not a headache, right? A headache would be a low adverse effect. But if you can't feel your left leg, well, that's a problem, right? So that's a medium or high. I would classify it as a high adverse effect, right? So the pharma companies, the second responsibility beyond documenting the effect would be to actually report to the FDA. Somebody has to put in the keystrokes and report everything that happened that they heard from the patient. And third is they then need to respond to the patient in a timely fashion. So if it's a headache, they might tell the patient, go take a Tylenol and go to bed. If they can't feel their left leg, well, they have to go to the emergency immediately. right? So it's the responsibility of the pharma companies to get back to the patient in a reasonable fashion. Now, for the longest time, all of this was done manually with humans, right? Because there is also some regulatory aspects here. As you can tell, there is data sensitivity. There's, the fact that lives are at stake when you do this. So there's some regulation around it. What pharma companies have been looking at is, can I do this in a safe, secure, scalable way by leveraging Gen AI on a platform like Blue Prism? And what we have shown them is absolutely you can. And you cannot, because remember, Blue Prism has been serving highly regulated industries for the longest time. So that's never been an issue for us, right? And now with the magic of Gen AI and the Blue Prism together, beautiful complementary technologies that can actually make an impact in terms of patient and their outcomes, right? So that's adverse effects in a nutshell. I know we took a divergence here, but I think...
No, that's good. That's helpful. And it is interesting, financial services and healthcare, both highly regulated industries, both very, very information and transaction intensive. So Gen AI certainly has a huge benefit to those verticals. So I'm not surprised that they're leading the pack. What are a couple of other industries you'd call out here?
Yeah, I would say manufacturing and also things like media, right? There's retail, there's utilities, there's telco. But by the way, one thing I should mention on healthcare, they're also using it, personalizing medication and care at scale. Think about that. That's an amazing use case because AI is able to look at patterns, look at trends, and then also look at the individual patient and create a personalized medication or a care regimen, which will hopefully help the patient in terms of the outcomes. So enough about healthcare. On manufacturing, right? I love this framework that McKinsey introduced, which was a 4-part framework called Plan, Source, Make, and Move. Why is that interesting? Well, because, if you look at manufacturing, it's a complex end-to-end process, right? There's these 4 parts: plan, source, make, and move. And so each of these areas, there's demand forecasting for planning. There's supplier management for the sourcing part. There is price optimization when you make stuff and you want to put it out in the market. And then there is route optimizations, sales ops planning, those kinds of things under moving, right? When you move routes have to be taken care of. So, manufacturing is a fascinating area. We have a lot of clients that are looking at and have implemented. The challenge we have sometimes with clients is they can't tell everybody what's going on for competitive reasons or for, confidentiality of protecting the information, the IP, right? If they've created something unique. Anyway, the last one I'll mention is media. Now, why media? When I first heard about it, I was thinking, it makes sense because, it's providing the marketing prowess, Gen AI is, in creating copy, in personalizing at scale, with emails, marketing collateral, inbound and outbound marketing efforts, right? Any of that, you can really use Gen AI to change the game. And so that's what we are seeing. Like if I have to summarize, it's about changing the game and being having the competitive differentiation, having the ability to do things faster, better, and cheaper.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your perspective on the leaders in Gen AI, Satish. And thanks to everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time on Gen AI Talk in 10.